Hi everybody, this is Cookies. This is a video to show how I got an American lock generic core with an unknown key. So this came to me with no key. I've picked it. I'm not going to be claiming the pick because obviously that was not done on camera, but I have no key for this. I don't know what's inside that, so I'm going to be cutting this to these pinning nuts, which are currently just empty and waiting, and I'm going to be replacing them with pins that match this key. This is my last surplus 6-pin key, so this is what I'm choosing to do. In the core we have a variety of pins. Here's the key for comparison. So we have a variety of shorts and longs. In the two shortest pins I'm using serrated spools. In all of the driver positions I'm using serrated pins, and I'm going to be endeavouring to put the shortest serration nearest to the pins if I can. I'm just going to be using standard springs for this. So in preparation for this I have a surplus core that I just use for testing purposes, a destroyed Bible, but it's useful for just testing the pins will actually operate, and just a core holder. So what I did prior to starting this video was I tested the pins that I was choosing against that key in that body to ensure that they line up as best I can. They're close enough, and then the theory is once I've assembled the lock, that is then going to be a viable key for continuing onwards. So I'm going to try my best to keep everything in shot here. As you may have seen from a previous video, my vision is poor and my coordination is poor, so there are going to be times here where, particularly when I'm assembling the Bible, that I may go out of frame. I'm going to try my best not to do that, and or you may not have a zoomed in image, but I'm trying to do this as transparently as I can. You can see no secret sleeves with palmed locks. So just to confirm, this is just being used as a carrier body so that I can pick it. I can hold it as a picket rather. This is a core that I have picked that I'm not claiming, but I'm just going to cut that just for curiosity. I'm going to, for the sake of this video, I'm going to dispose of those pins and springs. I'm actually going to put them back into my pinning kit. I'm going to replace them with a known key, and then that is going to go together with my 3 other key and core combinations that I've already made up previously in a similar way. So I've followed this sort of process a few times before. I'm sure it's going to go wild on us, but we'll just have to see how we go. So step 1 is going to be to remove this core. This is in a picked position, so I'm going to have to be careful when it comes to pull the C-clip off the back, or we're going to have a fireworks display, but I'll see where I go. This is not the lock body that I will end up using when I come to actually take advantage of this core at some later date. The retaining screw is pretty destroyed on this, but there we are. Trying to do this in camera. This isn't really a gutting video, but why not? There's the bolt. So that then allows us to just leverage out the retaining plate. Again, this is not going to be where this core is going to remain afterwards. This is just for the sake of it. So there's no anti-bypass driver in here, I don't think, but I don't bother with that for this sort of video. I'll take the core out, and there it is. We can discard this for now. We'll use it at the end just for testing. So everything now focuses on this picked core. What we're going to need for this exercise is some means of getting the C-spring off, the C-clip off. And I saw this recently. I think it might have been on the Helpful Lock Pickers video, I'm not too sure. But if you use a quick set or equivalent pickle fork, that's generally quite a good way of getting the C-clip off. So let's give it a shot. Trying to do this in frame. Where are we? There. Having to do this without relocking the core. Really don't want to go through all that again, because this was actually quite a difficult pick. Don't quite know why, but it was a little tricky. This is proving quite fiddly. Plan B, try the gut wrench. Goat wrench, I'm sorry. No, the gut wrench. I think Locknoob has actually stated that this isn't the best wrench for this sort of spring, but it's one of our choices of what we have here for this video. Just want to make sure I don't over-rotate the core. Which is a danger of doing. Fiddly little sod. Plan C. If we had the key, of course, this would be far easier, but we don't, which is why this video is being recorded in the first place. Rotate the clip so I can put better pressure on it. I have no idea what the history is with this core. Obviously the C-clip was part of it as I received it. So if it's putting up a battle, that may well be why. Very nearly relocked it then. It's still struggling. Why is this so difficult? Let me rotate. There we are. Finally. Obviously American Lock and Master Lock don't produce these for general customers to gut. Lots of fingers. But there is the removed C-clip. We're going to use that later. So now fairly simple gutting, he said. So my key pins are going to be here. Just because I don't know what's in here, I'm going to shim this. There is no key now installed. I think that's all the way through. Using my homemade, nothing exciting about this, just a piece of aluminium rod where I've put a bit of a tailpiece cut out on one end and a little cut out on the opposite. So let's see what we have in here. Looks okay. Out we go. So here's our core at rest. You can see there are actually 5 pins in this. We're going to replace that with 6. Quite a bit of gunk in there. Let's do it the opposite way. I have to try and tease it out. This might be why this was so hard to pick. This isn't the correct key, but I'm just going to try and persuade the key pins to come out. There is 5. not too concerned about preserving which pinning this had. I'm just curious for later. I'm not going to be going through that in depth in this video. There's 4. Nasty suspicion that when we come to do the Bible, it's going to be a bit gummed up in there as well. It just leaves 1 and 2. Let me just get a pick. Finally, so that's the core I'm going to reuse. I need to clean some of the crud off this. I'll hide anything here, as you can see. Bit of a wipe down. Doesn't really show on the tissue, but it is a mess. So that's going to be our repurposed core. It's going to be pinned to 6. Keep that for now. Let's see what was in the Bible. So, starting at 5. Barely breaking shear. This is going to be why it was so tricky. Have a look at these in a minute. Yeah, it's quite interesting. A little bit concerned. 5 springs, something going on in the Bible which is making these quite sticky, but also quite difficult to get both the drivers and the key pins out of this. Like I said, this is not really a video about the gutting process. I've already done one of those. This is going to be about reassembly, but let's have a look at these. So these appear to be, and this is the one I did not have a key for. My eyesight is poor, so let's have a look. We have a serrated in 1, a standard spool in 2, spool in 3, I think, standard spool in 4 and a serrated in 5. Let's just look and see. And then they are serrated spools. Sorry, this was about my vision up here, but let's give you a view of those, and then we're done with that for the sake of this video. That's what we did have, with no key. This is what we're replacing it with. Figure out what those extra pins are about in a moment. Let's do that now. Actually, no idea where they came from. Let me retest that. Okay, I think that's correct, but I'm going to double check. I've obviously knocked this and some of the drivers and springs have become a bit intermingled. Try and clean this core out a little bit. I'm obviously not going to be able to get into the chambers unless I use a pipe cleaner or something, which I think I may do, but I'm just trying to get rid of some of the crud that's been in there potentially for some time. So, never done this before, I'm going to actually use a pipe cleaner. Just give me a moment. One of the benefits of being at least a former pipe smoker, this is just to try and clean out a bit of garbage that I think is in there. Yeah, you can see that. All I'm doing is going right through the access hole at the bottom and just trying to do a bit of basic clean out. Let's do that on the others. This obviously then has the potential to put bits of pipe cleaner in the chambers instead, giving us a different type of problem, but reasonably happy this is a fair maintenance step. Would not normally need to do this. I'm only doing this because I'm not really too happy with the state of the difficulty rather that I had in actually getting those drivers and springs out. So I think that's about the best we're going to get. So you can't see an awful lot going on in there, but none of these are serrated. As far as I can tell, this is a stock core and stock body, stock pipe. So we're almost ready to start. As we can see, pipe cleaners did pick up junk, whether that's oil or grease or whatever it was. Voice is starting to go a little, I'm sorry. Done with that, let's throw this away. So like I said, I'm not really too happy that I've knocked the intended key pins, so I'm going to retest them because they need to go in here anyway. Most people watching this already know about this process, but maybe new pickers watching as well. So we're now in the reassembly phase. These American lock pins are so tiny. this one. So we need to do this anyway, so now's as good a time as any. Useful. Okay, don't know where that's gone, so I have to repin it again. This is from a Master American Lock pinning kit that I have. Didn't make a note of which pins I will be using, but let's try these. I think we're good. Yep, carry on. Forget that little hiccup, that never happened. I'm sure Bosnian Bill once said something like this: I was never destined to be a watchmaker. Just do it by hand. Backwards. Definitely something catching in this car. This is supposed to be the easier part. So the key pins are now in. Carefully test the key. Because it's got quite radical bitting, there is quite a likelihood that I'm going to lose some pins here. It's going to have to do without the key. I know they work. test that once it's back in the car. I think I just heard the missing pin. Try and find that. Yep. Found the surplus pin on the floor. So now we get to the bit that I find the hardest because of my eyesight, which is going to be populating the Bible. What I do when I do these is I do 3 on one side and 3 on the other. So just needed to get a drink. Let's work out how we're doing this. This is the front. I'll do 4, 5, 6 first, and then 1, 2, 3. So I need that to be facing forward. We'll do 4, 5, 6 in this order, and then 1, 2, 3. Check I'm still recording, which I am. Let's put that in the holder actually for now. May not be too clear, but I'm just going to try and do it so at least it's on camera. These are replacement springs rather than the ones that I took out of the body originally, the gutting. So spring in 4, may as well get the springs ready in 5 and 6. Right. So 4, I am using a serrated with the narrower end facing the core. That's 4 in. Same on 5. Same on 6. I apologise that you can't really see this very well, but that's 4, 5 and 6 loaded. Now I carefully do 3, 2, 1 in that order. I'm already feeling some tension on the follower, which is a good sign. This is potentially going to be a little bit trickier. See how we go. That's the spring for 3. Spring for 2. Spring for 1. We are going to put serrated in 3. That's loaded. Serrated spool, doesn't really matter which orientation, but there's a slightly narrower side and a longer side. So I'm going with the narrower side. Finally, spool for pin number 1. Which is also loaded. And then, this isn't really necessary with these sorts of choices of pins, in goes a shim. Quite snug, but that's a good thing. So this is now a fully loaded Bible. As you can see, there's some amount of tension holding it in. So now we just need to reassemble by putting the core in. I always need to think about the orientation here. Key pins are facing me, so it should be okay. And it is. I'm going relock. You heard that click. On goes the C-clip. Awkward little sod that it was. It seems to be on. And then we can test it with the key. Finally put it back in the lock, and then we should be good to go. Yep, happy with that. So this is the now repinned American Lock 6-pin core. It does operate, a little bit sticky there, but it does operate. I think that's because of that very radical pin there. The pins are the correct ones for this key. So works, have to pull slightly on the key for it to operate, but it does work, so I'm considering that to be a successful reassembly. And the last thing we need to do is to reassemble it into the lock. You've probably all seen this a million times before. Not bothering with an anti-bypass because that's not the use case for this. Loosely fit cover plate for now. You can see from the age and the state of this cover plate that it's seen some miles. Test that it operates, which it does. It does snag, like I said, but it does operate. Reassemble. Always be careful never to over tighten that. Double check. Same key. Snags, but it does actually work. Lock it. And it reopens. Springs back. Remove the key. Reinsert the key. And that concludes this gutting and reassembly of an American Lock 5-pin core, well, 5-pin key that I didn't have, to a 6-pin key that I do. I've chosen the shortest pins that have serrated spools, and all of the chambers have serrated drivers. Thank you very much. That's been Cookies. Hope you enjoyed.